That's our first question, so we'll get into that in a second. But all righty, joining us now is a former offensive tackle out of the University of Arizona, 11 years in the league, including 10 of them at the Buffalo Bills, 2 of them being Super Bowl appearances. Mr. John Fina, how are you, mate?
Hey, Tom and Tim. Happy as hell to be with you down in Australia, man.
Oh, geez, I love this up and about already. I love it.
Great energy. Thanks for joining us today, John. Great to have you.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure. You know, you got to evangelize the greatest sport in the world as often as you can and reach as far as you can. And that's what I'm doing today. So, hey, guys, anything absolutely. You want to ask me, I'm an open book. I like to keep it pretty fresh and easy. And, you know, my opinions just kind of come out of my mouth before I get a chance to stop them. So
the filter just gets lost sometimes.
What filter?
Yeah, perfect.
Well, you said you're not 100%, so you're staying off the beers, but that's I'm sure that won't stop the filter anyways.
Not at all. Not at all.
Nah, beautiful. All right, we'd like to start off by finding out, you've already told us, but we'll tell our listeners, have you been down under and graced our shores?
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear that you say down under. I didn't want to think it was like some stupid thing the Americans only say, but it was back in 1996. I grew up riding horses, and my father says, I want to go on this trail ride in Tasmania. It's called the Trek of the Tasmanian Tiger. And I'm sure you all know the legend of the Tasmanian tiger, right?
Yeah.
So we saddle up. I think it was in April or May, and we head down. I spent let me go back. I went to a movie wrap-up party in Tucson, Arizona, because a buddy of mine was friends with somebody working on the set. And I'm there at this party, hanging out, drinking beers, and I'm talking to this really cool Australian guy who was an actor in the film. And my brother comes over and says, "Hey, who are you talking to? What's going on?" I said, "Oh, I want to introduce you to my friend here. This is Russell Crowe." And he's like,
good old Rusty.
He's like, really? Who is he? I'm like, well, he's in the movie The Quick and the Dead, which they just filmed in Tucson. And my brother says, "Did you tell him you're going to Australia next week?" And I said, "No, I didn't want to do the whole tell me where to go, tell me what to do thing." So Russell just gets really kind of annoyed at me. We'd been talking for about an hour or two. And he says, "You're going to Australia, you're not telling me, and I'm going to hook you up and take care of you." So I'm like, yeah, all right, whatever, sure. We exchanged phone numbers. You know, back in those days, you wrote them down. And we landed in Sydney at about midnight, and I had slept the whole flight. I had only traveled with my parents, so I'm wide awake. I check into my hotel, and that little light on the phone is blink, 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 blink. I had 10 messages from Russell's buddies, and they're like, "Get your ass down here. You got to go come to the saloon bar on the rocks." So I'm like, all right, I'm wide awake. So I change out. I head down. They just said, "Come walk in the door and just scream, 'I'm Russell Crowe's friend, the American.'" It was on for 3 nights straight in Sydney. They tried to kill me with beer. Holy cow. So so I spent some time in Sydney, and then we drove to Canberra to tour the capital city there, designed by an American, Walter Burley Griffin, as you know. And I had to go to Canberra so I could dry out because our next stop was Melbourne. And again, the blinking on my phone from all of his friends. So I spent like another 5 days in Melbourne, just glassy-eyed from drinking all night and then touring with my parents all day. It was hilarious. And then I finally made it over to Tasmania, where we rode horses through the forest for about 4 days and nights. And it was really an amazing experience. The Australian people were incredibly warm and welcoming. And they have beer, which is fantastic. The food was great. I got to eat wallaby. We ate lamb all the time. It was absolutely brilliant. And that's my story of Australia.
That's epic.
I was going to say, I reckon you I don't know if you heard prior to that, but Russell Crowe has a bit of a reputation of being a bit of a party animal, especially back then. But I'm sure you found out pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, if it's anything like all of his friends, and then we stayed in touch a little bit. You know, we didn't we didn't spend a ton of time together or anything, but he was a fantastic guy to meet, and all things aside, it was really a great experience.
Yeah, you got to experience the best of Aussie culture. You got the beer culture, and then you got a bit of the nice national parks down in Tassie. So you did really well.
Yeah, Launceston was just absolutely stunning. I mean, it was incredible, and the trail ride out in the whatever you call it, the forest or the woods, was spectacular. It was incredible. Yeah.
There wouldn't be too many people that would be coming onto the podcast and saying they enjoyed Canberra because they were drying out and no one enjoyed Tassie. I reckon.
Well,
I reckon Canberra's the place you go to dry out. There's not much going on there besides Lake Burley Griffin.
Yeah. Where are you guys anyway? I didn't even ask. Apologies.
I'm just north of Melbourne, and Timmy's down on the coast,
just south of Melbourne.
Okay, terrific.
You can tell by his beautiful skin.
Right, that's not New South Wales is Sydney, but Melbourne's in
Victoria.
Victoria, right? I was going to say that.
Yeah.
My niece is going to school at James Cook up the coast.
Okay. Yeah. Wow, that's right up the coast.
You got family connection here, then?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, nice.
Does that mean you're going to come back?
Sure. I'd love to go back.
Yeah.
I'd love to.
Well, when you do, make sure you.
I might have to bring a fresh liver, though. Yeah. I mean,
you can't promise like Russell Crowe levels of fun, but we can have a crack.
We'll have a bloody good crack.
I'll put you through your paces.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, we expect the same thing when we come over to Arizona.
Absolutely.
We're going to take it right back. You were born in Minnesota, but you went to high school and then ultimately college in Arizona. How did you go from that? Two different parts of the bloody country. How did you end up there?
So this is the amazing part. My parents are from Rochester, New York, and that's about 60 miles from Buffalo. My father went away to medical school in Canada, did his residency in Rochester, Minnesota, where I was born, and they said no more cold weather, so they moved west. So then when I got drafted by the Buffalo Bills, it was like an incredible thing for our family because it was brilliant because I have probably
you're going back to cold weather.
I have about 100 cousins and relatives, so we had family reunion, every game. It was marvelous, absolutely incredible.
Was football always the passion, or did you grow up playing others as well?
Oh, when I was a kid, you played every sport. So I played a lot of soccer. I loved soccer. I played baseball and football. And then when I got to high school, I wasn't good enough for our soccer team. So I played basketball. And I quit baseball. So for 3 years of high school, I played football and basketball. And, I was fortunate that I was offered a scholarship at the University of Arizona. And I took it. I didn't have a lot of other offers. So that was the best one. And lo and behold, I became an Arizona Wildcat.
And did you get offered on a football scholarship?
Yes. Yeah.
So it wasn't always the plan to go to university at Arizona. It just sort of the pieces fell that way.
Well, more than likely I would have gone there if I wasn't an athlete. It's my hometown college. Yeah. And, I had two other offers that weren't quite as good as far as athletics go. So I took the biggest, best offer I could. It just happened to be in my backyard.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, it all fell into line. What did you study while you were there?
Well, I always wanted to be a doctor. So I was pre-med. So I took all the science courses, organic chemistry, physics, biology. And then I was a Spanish minor. So I learned a lot of Spanish, and I loved school. I was one of those nerds, I just loved it. I took a self-study course. I read Russian literature. I read everything by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. It was kind of my thing. I guess idle hands are the devil's workshop. So being Sicilian, I might have a proclivity for, devilish antics. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, hence why we started this podcast, because otherwise we'd be sitting around just getting up to trouble.
Yeah, drinking more. Do you still drink Tooheys down there? TOO.
Yeah, Tooheys is still alive. I don't drink it myself, but it's still going.
Yeah. So what's the brand? What do I got to drink when I come down there?
Ooh, there's been like an explosion of like micro brewers lately. So there's a shit, like there's still the major brands like your VB, Carlton draft, obviously Tui's 4X are really big.
I remember
Great Morgan.
4X in Carlton. Yeah.
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 They're still around.
Yeah. Otherwise, you hit up Furphy's. What's the other one near you
Better
that
Beer.
we had on the podcast? Better Beer. Yeah. So there's plenty
There's
of
literally
options.
thousands of options now. So you
I'd like to try all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll write a list and we'll tick them off.
Yeah.
We'll tick them off as we go.
Oh,
yeah.
we'll do a podcast on it for sure.
Oh,
Perfect. Perfect. All right. Well, hang on. I'll just write that down. So we'll put it on the to-do list. When you began your college career, it looked like you were a bit of a two-way player with both the offensive and the defensive line. How did you go there, and why did you ultimately choose the O-line?
Well, I didn't. It got chosen for me. When I got to Arizona, I was a linebacker, and then they timed me in the 40-yard dash, and I was so slow. They said, now you're a defensive lineman. And I wasn't very good. I wasn't very strong, and I wasn't very big, and I wasn't very quick. So I'd gone off to spring break. You guys, sure you do that down there, right? So there's a break.
All year round, baby.
So I come back from spring break, and I walk into the locker room, and I go to my locker, and somebody else's stuff was in my locker. I was number 98. So I'm looking around. I don't know where all my stuff is. So I walk around the entire locker room, and I finally recognize my gear in a locker, and I look up, and it's number 70. So I'm like, what the hell's going on? So I walk over to the equipment room, and the old crotchety guy in the equipment room, I said, hey, where's my shit? And he says, they moved you to offensive line. You're 70 now. And I was like, they weren't going to tell me? Like, I got to find out from you? That's literally how I found out I became an offensive lineman. I walked in the damn locker room and had to find my gear.
And the old bloke says, by the way, you're down the back end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does that work? How do you go getting your head around that?
I thought I was one step from being kicked off the team. Or
So you're fully relieved. You're I'm all good.
Or just benched forever. I never liked offensive linemen. I thought they were fat, sloppy, annoying crybabies. And then turns out I'm a fat, sloppy, annoying crybaby myself. So, yes, perfect fit. Yeah, it was good. No, it was hard. I didn't like it. I was lost. It's all, it's new terminology, just new way of thinking, a lot of memorization of plays and understanding different philosophies. And, it was a lot. So I didn't do very well my first year at it. And in my second year on offensive line, I was okay. And in my third year, I had a really, really great season. And then, lo and behold, the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
I love that you said you're doing all right. So, Timmy, just listen to some of this stuff that you finished off. Some incredible honours, including the second team All-Pac-10, the team MVP in your last year. Makes sense now that you were three-time All-Pac-10 academic selection. You said you had a big brain and enjoyed the pre-med.
You said.
And then ultimately you finished off with the Arizona Hall of Fame. How is that just an okay?
It's going all right,
career?
John.
Well, nobody likes someone who boasts a lot, but I'll say this.
We love it.
As far as being the MVP, now I know you guys watch American football. The MVP is always a quarterback, a receiver, or running back, right? So my last year at Arizona, we were so horrible. We were so bad. They made an offensive lineman the MVP. Totally unheard of. I mean, yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, no one's ever putting that back together. That's for sure.
Do you get back to University of often being a Hall of Famer? Do they try and get you back there a bit?
A little bit. It's interesting. People think that former players are really embedded in the programs, and in some places they are, and some they're not. And if I wanted to spend more time there, I'd be welcome. But you're raising your own kids, right? I got 4 of my own.
Yeah.
I have a career, so going and standing around on a football field and getting a backache, it doesn't sound thrilling. And then, of course, my son. My second child, Bruno, they didn't recruit him.
Oh, Bruno.
They didn't recruit him to Arizona, so he went to UCLA, which is in the same conference. So I don't know. Maybe they're a little bit annoyed that he didn't come there. But the coaching staff was a disaster at Arizona. And my son said, I am not going there. And I said, I don't blame you. The program is turning around, but it's certainly not very good at the time when my son was being recruited.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Then.
Yeah. So 1992 rolls around, and you're the 27th pick in the first round to your Buffalo Bills. Do you have what kind of memories of the day did you have, or did you just go and get wasted and you don't really remember it?
That's a great question, and it's accurate, except you have it in the reverse order. So there were a lot of people who didn't think I would be drafted in the top 3 rounds, but I had a really good preseason to the draft. And between the combine and the individual workouts that I did, yeah, and the senior game that I played in, my stock was just rising and rising. But I still didn't have any belief that I would go in the first round. So the night before the draft, I may or may not have had a few too many Carltons. And so my agent finally calls me, and he's like, "Where the hell are you?" And I'm scrambling to pick up the phone. I'm like, I'm laying in bed. He's like, "Get your ass down here. They're on pick 15. And I'm like, "Why? I'm not going to be picked for like another 4 hours." So I, rubbed the sleep out of my eyes, drank about 3 gallons of water, walked down there, and in about, 45 minutes later, they called my name, and I was just, I was kind of pie-eyed, and I didn't know what to do. It was just such an incredible rush of emotion. It was amazing. Now, everybody's like, "Oh, your family must have all been there." They didn't believe I was going to get drafted either. So my parents had planned a trip to Spain like 6 months before that. And they said, "Hey, we're going to be in Spain during the draft. Do you mind?" And I'm like, "I'm not getting drafted. Go to Spain.
Go have fun."
So they were over in Spain for Feria. Actually, they were in Portugal at the time. And so like they were making calls. "What's going on? What's going on?" They got a hold of my parents' friends, and they're like, "You're not going to believe it." And then getting drafted by Buffalo and all the family being in Rochester, it was a dream. I mean, it was an absolute dream. You couldn't have written a better story.
Yeah, you sort of said like obviously you didn't think you were getting drafted. Is that how it worked for you? You don't hear from many teams in the lead up, or like do you have a bit of an idea if any teams are interested, or is it more like you were genuinely surprised on the day?
I definitely knew I was going to get drafted. I didn't think it would be in the first 2 rounds. I thought I'd slip to the 3rd or 4th. I was a pretty obscure player in college. My university didn't do a good job of saying, "Hey, look at Tim Cotty. He's this great thing," and getting Sports Illustrated and people to write stuff. And now, media is everywhere.
Huge, yeah.
Back then it was beat writers, your local newspaper. There wasn't, 58 million podcasts and my son's highlights are all over Twitter. We didn't have all that crap. So I really had to battle out of obscurity, and I did it I played really well in the senior game in San Francisco. And then I trained really hard for the combine, and I crushed it at the combine. And then I had probably 14 coaches come to Tucson to work me out one-on-one. But, at the time, there were only 28 players drafted in the first round. You think you're in the top 56 players on the planet coming out of college? I mean, I never thought I was, but that wasn't my job. It was somebody else's.
Is it different to today? Back then, did you rock up in a suit and all those kind of things, or were you just wearing whatever you rolled out of bed in 20 minutes?
No, totally different. Back in those days, they only had a handful of guys really come to the draft itself. Well, maybe more than half, like maybe 30, 40 guys came. And I had no inclination of my ranking just because I was, kind of this nebulous player, conceptually like, well, he played in this kind of offense. It's not really a pro style offense. So, no one really knew. And people do the rankings back in those days, like kind of preseason and then right at the postseason. You don't have this opportunity to look at just, miles and miles of film on various players in college. And now everybody's a scout. Everybody's a promoter. You can't hide anymore. And that's virtually what I was doing. I was kind of hiding.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys
called you out.
gonna send me one of those shirts? I want one of those.
Which one? The one that Tim's got or the one that mine's the new
No,
version?
no, the Given Sunday one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send you
I'll
one. We'll hook
I'll
you up.
Venmo you the $300 in postage for the $9 shirt.
Yeah. It's a $300 shirt and $9 postage. Don't worry about that. Speaking of difference between now and then, what was the training camp like back then? So you've been called, you've made your way over to Buffalo. Is it a lot, I'm picturing it being a lot harder back then, that not players are soft these days, but it's all about, let's protect them, wrap them up in cotton wool and get them to week one. Was it, ground and pound back then?
Well, even back then, I was fortunate to play for Marv Levy in Buffalo because our training camp was really smart. So it would have been much more like today's training camp than, say, the Kansas City Chiefs back in those days with Marty Schottenheimer, which people widely regarded as, 5 weeks of hell. Two-a-days after two-a-days after two-a-days. Now, I think it's much smarter now. The Buffalo training camp was definitely harder than they are now, but nothing compared to like Kansas City and a few other places. I think it's better that they do it this way. I think it's harder to start the season with fewer preseason games and less contact in training camp, but I don't know that it matters in the long run anymore. I think the players are so good. They show up in such great shape. Fighting for a job and keeping a job, I think, is harder now than it was probably before I played, but not too far before, because there's such there's a lot of available talent now in that middle tier. I don't think that there's a ton of available talent at the top tier, but there's a lot of middle tier talent, and more than there was when I played, I think.
Yeah, and you walked into a team that's just played in the last two Super Bowls, and you're playing with players like Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, Steve Tasker. Like, did you know? Well, I'm presuming you knew about these guys going in. Like, these are legendary names.
I did, because one of my teammates from Arizona, Glenn Parker, was drafted by the Bills 2 years before I got there. So, whereas, I guess when I was a kid, I was a Pittsburgh fan and the Minnesota Vikings, because I was born in Minnesota, and the New Orleans Saints.
We don't speak of those teams on this podcast, mate.
Well, look, I don't like your damn Green Bay Packers one iota.
That's fine by me.
No. So anyway, so once Glenn was drafted by Buffalo, I immediately became a Bills fan, and I became familiar with all these guys, these legends, these Hall of Famers, and it was a great experience going into a locker room where they really embraced you and taught you how to be a pro, and there was this expectation of performance and commitment and professionalism that was, at least up here. And if you get drafted by a crappy team with just no real, bearing, like a ship's bearing, if you don't know where you're going, then it's just, you're falling apart all the time. You're patching it together with freaking, duct tape and a staple gun. So I was lucky that I was with a team like that really had an opportunity. And even better, I didn't even have to start my rookie year. I got to sit back and drink the Carltons and put a few more shrimp on the bobby.
Do you reckon that was big in helping you develop as a young player, not having to start and then becoming a starter in your second year?
100%. I think, I think more guys are doing it better now than in years past, and I think part of the reason is the training, the nutrition, the knowledge of the game. Your ability to study now with access to. We call it film, but what is it now anymore?
It's all digital now. Like it's all iPads and all that.
It's not even film, right? What the hell is it? So your access to the tools you need to be a superior athlete and football mind are so much closer to the tip of your finger right now. Whereas, when I first got to the University of Arizona, when you wanted to watch film, you had to get the damn thing and load the film
Actually set up a
through.
projector and
And you had to carry the.
It sounds like it was easier. If you don't want them to see the film, though, you just quick lighter, they won't notice. It's gone.
Oh, they noticed.
No, I played good that game, I swear.
the celluloid.
You started off pretty successful. Sorry, Carts. Like I said, first 2 seasons you played in the Super Bowl, and starting in your second year, you must have thought that football was pretty easy back then.
Yeah, that was tongue in cheek, wasn't it? Yeah, I think you're. I
don't know. If I went to 2 Super Bowls my first 2 years, I think this is shit.
I think you're baiting me. It's never easy. No. There is no easy game. There are no easy teams, and that's just the way it is. Like the minute you think you got it, I mean, you just get your ass handed to you. So you battled every day. Every day in training camp, there was a battle. It's you just get that feeling at the end of every game. Like I remember sitting in front of my locker, and I'm just like my arms at my sides. I'm like, I can't lift my arms. I cannot even lift my arms. Just being completely worn out. And as the season progresses, you realize that you're never fully recovered after like week 2. You're just playing this game where you're just trying to get to a manageable level of soreness and pain. And then by the time the game day comes around, maybe Saturday, Friday night, you're like, oh, I'm starting to feel a little bit better. And then bam, you're right back at it. So, and I never thought it was easy. I would say there were very, very few instances where I had a week off. You know what that means? A week off, like, hey, this week I'm playing against Tim. He's good. I got to be on my game. But next week, Tom is just he's a dumpster fire. Yeah. So there weren't really many of those even in the day when I played. I mean, they're beasts. Every one of them, they're, world-class athletes, just at the asymptote, I mean, it's the pinnacle of ability when you reach that. And it's strange to think of myself as having been in that arena. But when I watch it on TV, I'll slow a play down or I'll rewind a play and I'll just marvel at what these guys can do with their bodies. It's just incredible. I love the game. Absolutely love it.
Yeah. And do you think a bit too, because you guys were pretty successful during your time at the Bills, like obviously made 2 Super Bowls. I think you went on to the playoffs 4 more times during your career. Do you think like you were saying, no weeks off, because you're one of the more successful teams are coming at you with everything sort of every week. You're getting everyone's best every week. So you guys got to be on your game. Like, did you feel that kind of pressure, do you reckon?
Tim, for sure, man. Like we would say, we're playing the Bengals who were terrible back then. And it was, hey, it's their Super Bowl.
Yeah,
they want to be the giant killer. So you had to treat every team as if they were a playoff contender because they were going to get ready to play the Buffalo Bills. You got a target on your back, man. I mean, every week they're coming for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So 10 years with the Bills. What finally makes did you get traded or did you ask to move to spend the 1 year in Arizona?
They called me in January and said, we no longer are in need of your services. Yeah. And then I became
again, you were told what was going on.
And then I became a free agent. And Arizona called my agent and said, do you want to come up here and work with these young guys and, try and teach them how to be a pro? So I said, sure. I came up. I did 1 year at Arizona. And I just honestly, fellas, I mean, by the end of that year, my body just said, yeah, you probably don't want to do this anymore. It was just time.
Yeah, that's actually a question I want to ask where you always hear, Tom Brady's retired 4 times and whether Aaron Rodgers is going to retire this year or not and goes into the dark to find out whether he actually wants to. But do you, as one of the bigger guys, the big sooks that you set up forward, did you just know, halfway through the year that, this is going to be my last year? Or was it at the end of the season just sat down and go, you know what, I'm mentally just physically wrecked?
Well, I think a little bit of both. You want to cling to it because the warrior in you, the competitor in you, just doesn't want to say goodbye. So and the paycheck is nice too, right?
Yeah, cool.
So I mean, I made the league minimum for an 11-year veteran.
All them beers aren't free, John.
That's right. All them beers ain't free. But you know what I want to do? I wish I knew where Aaron Rodgers was, man. I want to show up at that little hut and put a glass. It'd be like a warlock. Like in the middle of the night when he's sleeping. Oh.
He wouldn't know if it's the middle of the night. He'd just be up and out all hours. It's always the night.
Know what's real? He might think there's someone in there with him.
In the middle of a DMT. Yeah.
Looking back, especially thinking about that time of your career when you retired, John, do you look back on your career and think, is there anything I would have done differently, or you wouldn't change a thing? Do you reflect back on the career much at all?
Yeah, of course. I mean, which of us lives without regret, right? I'm sure, Tim, you're regretting that shirt. And the Raiders, for God's sakes. Holy cow.
Maybe.
No, all jokes aside, yeah, I mean there are individual plays that I'd like to have back. There's I don't know. I think by and large it's like anything in life. If I cling to the things where I came up short, I'll live in a very dark place. Not like Aaron Rodgers in a dark place and a thing. But you have to figure out a way to reconcile that in your heart and in your mind, right? So for me, I think about it like parenting. I don't know. You guys are 14 years old. You don't have kids, but
I got two.
I have 4 kids.
Yeah, you got us covered.
and I wasn't always the best parent, and they weren't always the best behaved kids. And we, you always go through stuff, and then you as a father, sometimes you get a little over emotional. And my wife says to me one day, she's like, "God, you remember when Mimi or Bruno or Stella or Roman did XYZ?" And I said, "Nope," because I'm only going to remember the good shit, because all that other stuff, you just got to let it go, And it's easier with something like football because, I could play a fantastic game and we lose, or I could play like the dog's ass and we win. So, true team sport, true team effort, I think it makes it easier to kind of reconcile the plays where you weren't so awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Bruno, ripper name, by the way, and he is a huge fan of the podcast, so he'll hear this, so don't stress about that.
Thank God. Yeah, he's a big fan.
Oh, he's got one of these shirts already, don't worry.
We'll take good care of Bruno. Actually, I'm going out to California on Friday to meet up with my coach, my offensive line coach from college. He actually went into the NFL the same time I did, because one of the coaches, Bill Belichick, had worked me out.
Never heard of him.
So Belichick comes to Phoenix and works me out, and he says to me, "Where the hell are you learning all this technique?" And I said, "Well, it's Pat Hill, my coach at Arizona." And he's like, "Oh, I got to talk to that guy." And I'm like, "Well, give him a ring." So he ends up hiring him. So based on Pat's technique and philosophy and coaching, we both went to the NFL together. So
yeah, but the Patriots had a pick before the Bills, so obviously Bill thought the coach was good, but you were no good.
No, that's true. Except you need a history lesson, Tom, because he was at Cleveland at the time.
Yes, I was.
And they had the Patriots. They had the 15th pick, and I don't think I could have been justified as a 15th pick overall. He froze. Oh, that's it. I'm taking over the podcast.
What are you doing,
this
John?
is. Oh, you're back.
Oh, I think we might be back.
Oh,
we're back.
There he is. He's come back with a
He's out of the darkness.
Is technology not work down under? I don't know what's going on.
Oh, don't you dare blame us. That is all Arizona.
An Arizona issue.
Oh my God. Well, it's good to know that you guys are
doing
still
down
full of shit, just like you were back in '96.
Nothing would have changed.
I was 4 back in '96, so I had nothing to do with that.
Wow.
Did you get some clarity in the dark, John?
I did.
Nice. What'd you come back with?
But now you guys have switched spots, so
Yeah.
Different spot.
Oh, you're on my phone
Mhm.
right now, but that's all right.
That's okay.
That's all right.
yeah.
I have no idea where we were up to.
I brought the ring for your viewers. It's kind of
Oh,
see if I can-
shit,
yeah,
yeah.
see if I can-
that?
So do you have 2 of those?
I do have 2 of those.
Yeah, nice.
That's awesome.
Not too bad, right?
Yeah.
Oh, not too bad. There's only, 100, 200 people that get that. Oh, no, only 100 because it's AFCs
Yeah.
and then FCs.
Well,
Get that a year, so not too shabby.
well, about 55 people per team, so 130 or somewhere around there, depending on who gets a ring and who doesn't.
Staff and
yeah.
Do they get a
All
run
right.
out and about very often? Or
Say
do
that
they
again?
sit in a special place?
Oh, I take them there every now and again. I'm going to take your guys' picture. Look at you handsome devils. I don't need the flash.
Oh, it's on the flash.
I got to turn the flash off. Oh, no.
Come on, Johnny.
my-
You're echoing, so while you're doing that, I'll put your echo on. You take our
Yeah,
photo.
take that damn echo off. Why do you?
Oh, it won't
gotta
while we're
fix
recording. Oh, well.
Not bad for me.
What was the question?
Nah.
I think
Where were we up to?
we were touching.
Well,
Oh,
we'll get to life after football now anyway. So, yeah, since then, what's life been like? You have a new podcast, Off Tackle with John Fina, which I reckon most people can probably guess what that's about.
Yeah, right. So, it was interesting. I wasn't playing around with Twitter at all, and then my son was getting recruited, so he had to have a Twitter account. So I wanted to kind of follow along with it, and then I started searching for Buffalo Bills content, and I started following people, and then people were saying, is this really you? And I was like, I think it's me. I don't know. Ow, yeah, it's me.
Yeah,
So
I think so.
So I just started having fun with Twitter, and I engaged with the fans. A lot of people. I don't consider myself famous, by the way. I'm like a D-list celebrity, but a lot of like super important people will put something up and then just never re-engage with whatever invective they put up on Twitter. So what I would do is I would engage. If I thought something was funny, I'd say that's funny, or cool cat video, or wow, that looks delicious. And so I started getting this reputation as being just an engaging type of person, when really the truth is I hate people. It took a while to land there. Tom's still processing. So
I've got it. I'm
just
just listening.
So one of these guys reaches out to me, Joe Miller, who's my co-host, and he sends me a message, and I'm like, I'm one of those people, like, if you're going to text me and it's longer than this, I'm just reading the last sentence. So just make sure the last sentence is what you really want to know. So he sent me this message, and I just said, just call me, and I give him the number, and he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not made of glass. I'm just like you. We're all worm food in the end anyway. So he says, do you want to do a quarterly podcast? We'll predict the season 4 games at a time, and then we'll do a wrap-up show. And people liked it. So he said, do you want to do a full season? And I should have said no.
Yeah.
Because it sucked me into the team and back into the game, and I became a little bit more obsessed, and I started taking it seriously, and I just want to be a fan, but now I'm a content creator. Right? Isn't that what you guys are?
Pressures that come along with that too.
Oh yeah, no pressure. I don't really care what people think of me, except for you guys. You're the only ones that matter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a good show. We break down some film. I'm sure you guys have watched every episode in anticipation of having me on your show.
100%.
Yeah.
Getting through the back catalog, obviously. Yeah.
It's been great. And I've just made so many new friends in Buffalo that are part of this Bills Mafia community. And every time I go back, I meet somebody new, and I meet this, great person, and who's got this great story to tell. And, wonderful life full of joy and tragedy and wonder and amazement. And, people are really very interesting, even though I can't stand them.
Well, that's
You say you hate people, but you love talking to them or about them.
No, I do enjoy meeting people.
But and like the Bills Mafia, even like over here in Australia, like we know a bit about the reputation of the Bills Mafia, but like it's just like you guys are like just a whole different fan base over there. Hey, like you guys are, I don't want to like, without sounding like derogatory, but you guys are wild. Like,
well, that's okay. I've been insulted by prettier people than you. So
I don't know. He's got the hair.
Yeah, the hair is great. It really is.
Yeah.
Tom, you should probably take some lessons.
Yeah, it's just the lights that I have.
Oh, is it the lights? Oh, God, what's wrong with my lighting?
Yeah.
Oh, my God, it's Tom. He brought his lighting.
Shit.
Yeah, there. For all of the, I guess, media that the Bills Mafia gets, I don't think it's as wild, but it is certainly as passionate as you would imagine.
Yeah, much better word.
So there are some people doing some pretty outlandish things, which
I've seen people jumping through tables before games. That seems pretty wild to me.
Which I like to see from a safe distance.
Yeah. But there's also the other side to the Mafia too. Like, the media likes to talk about like we said, that passionate wild side, but also like there's that community side. Like you guys as a group, as a community, like huge donations to charities and things like that, and get behind causes en masse together. I think that's a big and really positive part of the Bills Mafia too, that probably should get highlighted a bit more, I reckon.
No, I agree with you. I think with Damar Hamlin and the amount of money that was raised for him, his charity, and then people kind of started looking back. Those who weren't familiar with it started to see what they did for Lamar in Baltimore, and for the quarterback in Cincinnati, and what they did for Josh Allen in the Oshai Children's Hospital when his grandmother died suddenly. And it is really amazing. And I have to give a shout out to the Bills Mafia Babes. If you don't follow the Bills Mafia Babes, you have to. They organize a monthly fundraiser. So they'll pick one of the players' charities, and they'll do some sort of a fundraiser in the community, whether it's just go out and drink beer or go to a drive-in movie or something, where a portion of the proceeds gets donated to that player's charity. And it's pretty awesome. It is. And what I love about Buffalo is it's a small enough community that everywhere you go, especially during the season, everybody's wearing Bills gear. And it's just a cool feeling to see a city that embraces one specific thing. And because of the size of the city, you see it everywhere. We're in Los Angeles, you might have Lakers fans, but I mean, there's 8 million people there. You don't see them every day. But if you're walking the streets in Buffalo, New York, or you're in the South Towns and you're shopping, people are wearing their ball caps and their T-shirts, and it's pretty damn cool. It's a cool identity.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Like that's like we say, like that. Yeah, that sense of community. Yeah, it's so strong with you guys, and it's awesome to see.
All right. We've been holding off for long enough now. We'll get into actually talking about your Bills. You had a pretty tough end of the season, and there's some pretty, as you mentioned, some pretty out of the ordinary situations, such as Damar Hamlin and such. But what was your biggest takeaway from the year?
Well, yeah, I mean, to kind of wrap it up in a little package, it wasn't just Damar Hamlin. It was the shooting that happened on Buffalo's east side. It was the owner's wife and the COO of the Buffalo Bills, Kim Pegula, who suffered a medical emergency. And there was a fire in on the east side that, 4 children died in. And then there was the snowstorm where so many people died. And it was, it was just such an emotional roller coaster for the entire community. And I think that when you're so close knit as a team with a city like Buffalo or Green Bay or, some of the what people call smaller markets, but what I would say more intimate cities, is that can't happen without it affecting you. And players, because of this, because of Twitter, are so much closer to the fans and that fan community that you can't help it. It penetrates the armor. So I know that it was a very long season in that regard. I just you kind of saw it. I don't want to say unraveling, but you saw during the last half of the season that things weren't really right. The philosophy offensively was too scattered. Like there wasn't a real identity that they were just forcing on the opponent. The running game philosophy, I couldn't even describe it to you because I don't know what it was. And then when they got to the playoffs, that Cincinnati game, they were flat. I don't think that they had the right game plan, and it was horrible. I was there, and watching that game was brutal. It was incredibly hard to watch. From the first snap until the end of the game, it just looked very uninspired. It looked very poorly planned. And, despite all the highs of the regular season, you come into the playoffs, you still have to figure out a way to peak. You still have to figure out a way to be better than you were last week, to be better than the team that you're playing, to enhance your performance. And it looked like none of that. I hate to say it. It pains me.
Yeah.
But
it's a honest, brutally honest analysis. What do you think? Like some steps that the Bills might need to take to get towards peaking in the sort of playoffs next year. Like, what are some of the pieces that you think they might need to bring into play?
Well, I guess that even though we're connected live right now and you're in Australia, you didn't see the news. So Leslie Frazier, the defensive coordinator from Buffalo, is taking a year away. Now,
I did see that. We're talking about that this week.
But, so I don't know if that means he was not renewed. His contract could have been up or what have you. But, one of the things that I've always said about defense is I would rather bring pressure, right? I want to come at you, Tim, and knock your ass off. I don't want to sit back and wear you out and play some game. And so we were playing a lot of very conservative defense, just sitting back and waiting and just, I don't think you can do that anymore. The talent is too good on the other side of the ball. The top tier quarterbacks and their receivers are far too good for you to just sit back and, kind of play this bend, don't break defense because they're just too good. And then offensively, I make it sound like I'm blaming the defense for everything, but offensively, the consistency wasn't there. And we have a young offensive coordinator in Ken Dorsey. I think he's good. I think he's creative, but he's got to really get a run game coordinator, and they've got to come up with what is our identity. We've got to be able to complement Josh Allen with more effective runs and then play action based on those runs and be able to, game plan for the defenses that were playing a little bit better. And we just didn't see it.
Do you think because of such a beast that he was, did you rely too much on Josh for the running game in the end, do you think?
I think they did, but I don't think you had to. I think that was the result of not having a more cohesive philosophy to your running game. And if you have a crutch, you're going to lean on it, right?
Yeah.
So you should always assume you don't have the crutch and develop a running game for the sake of develop a goddamn running game. Run the football. What are you going to do? Are you going to run zone? Are you pin and pull? Are you inside zone? What are you going to do? But damn it, do it. And do it over and over until you get damn well good at it. Now you get me angry. Yeah. It's the off season.
This is a passion. Yes.
We talked about the passion.
That's it. Well, your running game at the end of the season was a bit like your internet. It was shit house. So coming up, you've got pick 27 in the draft, but you've only got 6 draft picks across the whole thing.
Is it?
Are you going to try and trade up and get someone like a John Robinson?
We
or
have pick 27. That was my pick. Hey,
It's a special
my dad.
pick.
It's my dad.
There you go. Hey,
Chuck,
Chuck, get him on. Tell him he's live in
Hold on, I
Australia.
got to tell him. I said, hey, Dad, hey, Pop. Hey, Dad, I'm on a podcast right now with a bunch of blokes in Australia. Can I call you back in a few minutes? Bye.
This is riveting. Good old Chuck. Welcome aboard, Chuck.
Well, Tim's not nearly as insensitive as Tom, but so I'll talk to Tim. So, Tim, my mother passed away in September. And so my father's a widower. And when he calls at 8, 9 o'clock at night, I'm always like, shit, something's, So I'm trying to look after my father, Tom, you jackwagon.
You try to do the right thing.
Good to see you've still got a heart, mate. That's great. I do. You've got me terrible. That still doesn't change the fact that your internet's shit. But what are you going to do with pick 27?
Al Gore and the United States of America invented the internet. You're welcome.
Oh, thanks, but at least ours
Didn't
works.
we invent Wi-Fi in Australia? So we got that.
No, you invented the Bobby.
The Barbie.
So who are they?
And the shrimps.
Who are they going to pick with 27? Yeah. So,
or are you going to trade up and get someone, Bijan Robinson or something like that to try and complement the running game?
So, do you know Bijan Robinson and my son Bruno were high school teammates? They came out together. I love that kid.
I knew that now.
I love that kid. I love my son more, but Bijan's amazing. So I think they can address the running back spot, maybe, but I think James Cook is going to be the real deal. His brother Dalvin is amazing, and James showed flashes at the end of the season, so I'm not too concerned about the running back position. I think, there are obvious needs that could compete for that pick, right? So you could say a first-round wide receiver. I think that would not be a bad pick. Defense, I'm totally confused. We've got so many early picks on the front four that aren't producing. We've got we're pretty set at linebacker if we keep Tremaine Edmonds, so I wouldn't draft a linebacker. If we lose Jordan Poyer, do we want to get a safety? But do you draft a safety in the first round? Probably not. So then it brings me back to the offense, and I say we get a big weapon wide receiver or maybe interior O-line. But it's hard to draft guards and centers in the first round. It's just kind of, people kind of sneer at that. Like, yeah, you can always get a offensive lineman, but then everybody's crying that they think the offensive line sucks. So, man alive, I trust in my general manager, but I think if the right guy's available, it's wide receiver. And if not, I think we go to the secondary. We get a safety. That's it.
Yeah, buck to 10. Get a safety in the first round. I like it.
But look, I'll tell you right now, if the Buffalo Bills draft Bijan Robinson, I'm going to cry out loud. And in 3 years from now, they draft my son. You guys might have to come over here and resuscitate me.
Mate, when he's up for the draft, we'll come over and do a live there, I reckon.
No, I'll go down there like my parents ditched me.
Yeah, you got to go. Come here and
let's go to Spain
and have a few Carltons.
Brilliant.
What kind of positions your son playing these days?
Same as me, offensive line. I mean, he's
so is he the same as you, where big, what would you call it, crybaby up forward, or is he a bit more of a man?
Yeah, a little bit more of a man, a little tougher than me. But what's interesting is, when I got drafted, I was about 288 pounds. He's that now. And he's bigger. Of course, the kids are bigger now than they ever were. So he's about 6'4" 3/4, about 293 now. I mean, it's just incredible. And I didn't get to be that size. He's only 20. I didn't get to be that size until I was probably 23. So he's ahead of my curve.
Oh yeah, that's a beast.
And he'd be running a quicker 40, I imagine.
I don't know. I was fast. I ran about
Yeah.
I ran about a 4.95. That's pretty good for a big guy.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, shit, yeah. Yeah.
What is that, like
Cars,
38 meters? What do you guys call it? The 40 meter?
Yeah, what is? I'd actually know what the 40 yards
It's like
is.
38.89 meters. You're not doing the math,
Yeah.
are you, Tim?
You don't need 5 seconds.
Let's go.
You old boys getting on your phone, just yell out at Siri. I love it.
Right.
40 yards.
So
Cardi is the old boy of our group, so he'd be mostly connected towards you, Johnny.
7 meters.
Oh,
40
wow.
yards.
So I will say, Tom, I was also in Buffalo when they beat the Green Bay Packers. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Now,
Hey, we were under the 10.5 that we were given, so I feel like that was a win.
yeah.
He's done that way, John. He's done that all year, John. He's taken covering the spread as a win.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Woo!
That's the
Man,
song.
I didn't realize this was going to be a soft like cotton podcast.
Yeah. I'm just a very passionate man, don't you? And I'll go to bat for my boys
so
any day of the
Used to
week.
do for the Packers.
I do have a soft spot in one place for the Green Bay Packers because when I was in Buffalo, Elijah Pitts was our running backs coach, and he scored the first rushing touchdown in any Super Bowl for the Green Bay Packers. Played for Lombardi way back in the day, and just loved Elijah. What incredible man, great father, great coach. And he got sick. He had cancer, and that was kind of like my first time, seeing somebody when they're going to go. And it's like a memory that was, even though he knew he was at the end, he was less sad than I was, and he just had all these words of wisdom and an incredible part of my early career for sure. A great guy who just loved people, loved coaching, and just a terrific man.
Yeah. And anyone who scores for the Packers is a bloody beautiful man in my books, don't you worry.
When does the therapy tomorrow? Do you go to therapy in the mornings or the afternoons?
2 a day. He's had 2 a days for this week.
I'll tell you, when I was over there on the trail ride, it was a really small trail ride on Tasmania. It was incredible, like 28 guys, and they were all fascinated with American football. And we're talking about, like how do you throw it? So they had a rugby ball, and I was showing them how we throw, and I'm throwing spirals, and they were like fascinated on how you could like overhand throw a ball like that. I was just like, how do you not? And you think, in cricket, it's that over the, I don't even know what that technique is called, but it's
bowling. Yeah.
Bowling. Yeah. Very strange though. Not with the bent elbow.
Right, like a
but that's
windmill
the
kind of
thing. It's so foreign to us, like, because obviously our football sports are like all mainly kicking based, or I suppose rugby's passing, but it's not the overarm passing. So yeah, it's fine for us. Obviously now NFL is becoming such a huge sport in Australia now. Like the growth's huge, so everyone's exposed to it now. But back then, yeah, it would have been super foreign.
Do you guys have Tom? Do you go to a Green Bay bar, and Tim, do you have a Raiders club you go to? Like, even in Tucson, we have a Buffalo Bills backers club. There's like 4 in Phoenix. I've actually taken to, when I travel, go to the Bills backers bars, and I'm collecting the T-shirts. So, do you guys have those clubs? Do you have a Bills bar and a Packers bar?
Yeah, we're not lucky enough to have like just dedicated to teams. Probably more like dedicated just to NFL.
Okay.
We're not quite there yet that we've got big enough fan bases to have like just a Raiders team or just a Green Bay team. But I could see it definitely going that way.
So I think what you got to do, you got to kind of, it can't start organically, right? You got to get like 6 of your buddies and say, hey, we're going to be Raiders fans, and we're all going to go to this particular. You go to that bar, and you tell the owner, every weekend we're coming here. We're going to watch the Raiders. We want it on all the TVs, and you just convert the bar into a
I
Raiders
like
bar.
it. You slowly bring in more like memorabilia, and
Exactly.
then there's like
Right.
There's the Raiders corner, then there's the Raiders room, then it's the Raiders bar. I like where your head's at, John.
Yeah.
I like it.
Now, you could never do that with Green Bay because the colors are so shitty.
Yeah. No one will want to be in there. Yeah.
Who wants to be in a darkly lit bloody black and silver bar? That sounds a bit weird.
Sounds pretty good to me.
Ooh, creepy. I don't know where you were going with that, Tom, but you might need some therapy for that too.
Yeah, lucky two times a day. I'll be plenty of time to be across it.
Excellent.
We've got a couple more questions for you, Johnny, but just want to say I appreciate you giving up your time to come on. It sounds like you are a busy man with your podcast and everything that's going on in your life. So we do appreciate you giving up your time and coming to speaking to us, mate.
Hey, it's really my pleasure. I honestly, visiting with you guys just reminds me so much of my trip to Australia, and that's a good thing. And if anybody was interested in my content, although you guys probably put out a ton yourself, I'm at John Fina on Twitter, and I like to have fun and kid around a lot. And if you want to listen to me talk about Buffalo Bills football and convert a few people to Buffalo Bills fans, it's the Off Tackle Show with John Fina. And we are live on YouTube. We were Monday nights last year. I don't know if we're changing nights, but just like you, go to YouTube and search Off Tackle Show with John Fina, and we'll have some fun.
Yeah, we'll tag you in everything that we put up so people will be able to find you. But one last question for me. You played the left tackle position for most of your career, which, as I'm sure you've gone and listened to all of our podcasts, I find it to be one of the most important positions protecting the QB's blind side. What are your thoughts on the O-line position these days?
Well, I think left tackle isn't as important compared to right tackle now as it was then. The advent of defensive end technique and the ability of players, the size, strength, and speed is sort of evened out both sides of the defensive line. So I think, although left tackles tend to see the fiercer pass rushers, they're getting closer and closer in ability. The thing that's amazing about offensive line play is the only mirrored position on the field is defensive back, particularly like man coverage corner, right? So I have to react to what you do. Everything I do is based on what you do. Even in the run game, I still have to make sure that I'm compensating for the direction that the guy in front of me takes. And I have no idea where you're going to go at the snap of the ball. So especially with regard to pass protection, I take that set and you could come right into me. You could try going around me. You could try coming inside. It could be arm over. It could be arm under. It could be all kinds of different stuff. And you just, the technique and the technicians that are playing in the NFL right now at the tackle position are just, it's incredible. Like the amount of focus, concentration, and adherence to your technique are the things that'll like extend your career and keep you regarded as a really good football player. And I think offensive line is also, think about it, and you could find another one if you can, but in all of sports, it's the only position where the sole purpose of your role is the protection and safety of other people.
Mm.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Yeah, I'm not finding many others.
Yeah. So that's what we do. We look after running backs. We look after quarterbacks. That's our deal. So it was fun, man. It was so much fun playing, and the meetings were good. Cutting it up just like we're doing, like this. You give a little shit, you take a little shit. But in the end, the body kind of gives way, and so much of the preparation is what I don't miss. I don't know what you guys do for a living, but the game of football is played on Sunday, and practice is only an hour and a half or 2 hours. But all those other hours in the day, it's like going to a board meeting and you're reviewing film or you're reviewing plays and you got your notebook, and that part, I'm done with that. Yeah, I don't miss the long meetings.
Yeah, for sure.
Fair enough.
Just one final one from me, John. Just real quick, what's your prediction for the Bills next year?
Ooh, well, I actually was close in my prediction this year. I think I had them going 13-4, and despite the cancellation game, I might have been off. I think they might have gone 14-3. So, God, I really feel uncertain about this year, and I think the Bengals, the Ravens, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Chargers are always dangerous because of their quarterback. It's tough, man. Like, honestly, 17-game season. I'd like to see we win 12-5, and I think you get to 12, you're in the playoffs. You might not like where you're going or what you're doing, but it's hard to win a football game. You don't get a lot of players on your pods, do you? But I'll tell you this. When you're a fan of the game, you look at, the Buffalo Bills 10-3 are playing the Raiders, who are, 3-10, and that's easy, right? But there's no easy. Like, they don't come out there to lay down. I mean, these are grown men with pride, and although they suck in record, you just never, any given Sunday. Right?
Oh.
Any given Sunday.
Did
like
we
the
just
podcast.
How good's that?
And people don't want to believe it, right? Because they look at records and they look at talent and they look at percentages and all this other crap. Oh, the Raiders can't beat the Bills. And then they come out and they beat them. And you're like, what the hell happened? Well, these are grown men with pride too. So there are no easy games. And like I said earlier, the minute you think you got it easy is the day you get your ass kicked. So my coach Pat Hill always said to us, he said, never take too seriously a pat on the back because it's only 18 inches from a kick in the ass.
That's good advice.
Words of wisdom.
You dropped a couple of dimes there at the end, John. That's great.
I do what I can.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Imparting some wisdom to you young gentlemen. Oh, here's another good one. I thought about this one for years and years because I was always one of those guys that did, people didn't think I had a chance, right? So I was always fighting the odds, kind of like Josh Allen did. He had to go to junior college and then went to Wyoming. Well, I wasn't very highly recruited out of high school and this and that, but my coach at Arizona used to say that Dick Tomey, who's deceased about 3 years now, he said, the reason most people fail instead of succeed is they trade what they want most for what they want at the moment. Mm-hmm. That's a good one too.
Just dropping absolute time.
The reason most people fail instead of succeed is they trade what they want most for what they want at the moment.
Yeah. All right.
That's a good one.
Cool. Yeah, no. I'll get to listen back to this a few times. I'll work it out by the time we
I'll put it in a letter and post it and send it to you. It'll be there.
By the time it gets to me, I'll work it out.
It'll be Christmas.
Beautiful. What a great way to finish, Johnny. We do appreciate it. And if you'd be keen, we'd love to have you back on during the probably closer to the season and then on the season as well.
I'd love to. You guys are great. You're doing a great job. I hope your viewership and listenership just goes off the charts, and you make a ton of money, and you get monetized, with your favorite beer label and all that great stuff. And the NFL, it's endless. You guys have so much to talk about. So I know you're going to do great, and I'm thrilled to have been part of your podcast. So appreciate it.
That's been awesome. Thanks for jumping on, John.
Cheers.
Cheers. I love it.